Marta was an avid traveler who had visited many countries around the world. Her passion for new experiences and cultures was insatiable. After many years of dreaming, she finally decided to travel to Africa, a continent that had always drawn her with its mystery and wild nature. Marta carefully prepared for the trip. She read many books about African nature, culture, and traditions. She got all the necessary vaccinations and bought special clothing for a safari. Marta chose an exotic tour that included visits to several countries in East Africa: Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. When the plane landed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, Marta felt excitement mixed with slight anxiety. It was her first time in Africa, and she didn't know what to expect. As she stepped out of the airport, she was struck by the heat and humidity that immediately enveloped her. Marta was met by her guide, David, a tall Kenyan with a broad smile and kind eyes. He was an experienced guide who had been working in the tourism industry for over 15 years. David warmly welcomed Marta and helped her with her luggage. On the way to the hotel, David told Marta about the local culture and the history of Nairobi. He explained that the city's name comes from the Maasai expression, Anchor Nairobi, which means place of cool waters. Marta was impressed by David's knowledge and his ability to talk engagingly about local landmarks and wildlife. On her first night in Nairobi, Marta woke up to strange sounds outside her hotel window. Looking outside, she saw a group of baboons rummaging through trash bins. One of them noticed Marta and bared its teeth threateningly. She quickly closed the window, but the incident reminded her that she was truly in wild Africa. The next day, the real adventure began. Marta and a small group of tourists set off in a jeep to Masai Mara National Park, one of the most famous wildlife reserves in Africa. Along the way, they passed through small villages where Marta could observe the everyday life of the local people. She was amazed by the bright colors of traditional clothing and the friendly smiles of people waving at the passing jeep. As they entered the park, a breathtaking view of the endless savanna opened up before Marta. Golden grasses swayed in the wind, and groups of wild animals could be seen in the distance. David explained that they had arrived at the height of the Great Migration, an annual movement of millions of animals across the Masai Mara in search of fresh grass and water. Suddenly, David slammed on the brakes. Right in front of their jeep, a herd of wildebeest was crossing the road. The animals were in panic, and it soon became clear why. 3 hyenas were chasing them. Marta watched the chase with her heart pounding. The hyenas caught up with a young wildebeest that had fallen behind the herd. Marta turned away, unable to watch the brutal scene of the hunt. David gently explained that this was part of the natural cycle and that hyenas play an important role in the ecosystem. Marta was deeply affected by what she had seen. She watched herds of zebras and wildebeest grazing peacefully on the plain. Giraffes moved gracefully among the sparse acacia trees, plucking leaves from high branches. Elephants were bathing in a small lake, splashing water with their trunks. David told Marta about the complex social structures of elephant herds and their remarkable memory. She was amazed to learn that elephants can remember and recognize each other, even after many years apart. On the second day of the safari, the group set out in search of rarer animals. David skillfully drove the jeep along narrow tracks, explaining the features of the landscape and describing animal behavior. Suddenly, he stopped the vehicle and pointed toward the dense bushes. There, almost invisible thanks to its perfect camouflage, lay a leopard. Marta held her breath as she watched the magnificent predator. The leopard seemed to pay no attention to them, lazily stretching on a tree branch. David explained that leopards are among the most elusive big cats, and spotting one in the wild is a rare stroke of luck. Toward evening, the group settled on a scenic hill to watch the sunset. David said that the place was called Osai's Spear because of its distinctive shape. As the sun began to sink below the horizon, the sky was painted in incredible shades of orange and purple. Marta felt that it was one of the most beautiful sunsets she had ever seen. She took out her camera and snapped several photos, trying to capture the magical atmosphere. That night at the camp, Marta couldn't fall asleep for a long time. She stepped out of her tent and froze in amazement. The sky was filled with millions of stars, bright and close, unlike anything she had ever seen in the city. The Milky Way stretched across the entire sky like a silver ribbon. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the distant roar of a lion. Marta flinched, but she was not afraid. She felt like a small part of this vast, wild world. On the third day of the safari, an unexpected event occurred. While the group was watching a pride of lions, their jeep suddenly stalled. David tried to restart the engine, but without success. He explained that there was likely a problem with the fuel pump, and that they would have to wait for help. The situation was tense, as they were only a few hundred meters away from the lions. David reassured the group, explaining that lions are generally not interested in people inside vehicles, as they perceive them as a large, inanimate object. Nevertheless, he asked everyone to stay in the jeep and avoid making sudden movements. Marta felt her heart beating faster and faster. She watched the wild predators, who seemed to pay no attention to them. The lionesses were resting in the shade, while the young cubs were playfully wrestling with each other. While the tourists were waiting for help, one of the lions finally became interested in their jeep. The largest predator in the pride, apparently the leader, slowly moved closer, carefully sniffing at the strangers. Marta held her breath. The lion walked around the vehicle, stopping briefly and staring directly at the people inside. Its amber eyes seemed to look straight into Marta's soul. She felt a mix of fear and awe in the presence of the majestic predator. Finally, the leader cast one last intense glance at Marta, then lost interest and returned to his pride. Marta exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath the entire time. After the lion returned to the pride, the predators completely ignored the jeep, which greatly relieved and reassured the tourists. An hour later, technical assistance arrived, and they were able to continue their journey. However, the incident left a deep mark on Marta's soul. The next day, the group went on a walking safari across the savanna, accompanied by armed rangers. During the walk, the curious Marta accidentally fell behind the group, captivated by the beauty of a wildflower. She wanted to take a few photos and didn't notice the group moving far ahead. When Marta realized she was alone, she was seized by real panic. She tried to catch up with the group, but in the monotonous savanna landscape, she quickly lost her sense of direction. The sun was merciless, and soon Marta began to feel tired and thirsty. She decided to find shelter from the sun and wait there until the rangers found her. Suddenly, Marta heard a rustling sound in the tall grass. Her heart froze when she saw a huge lion slowly approaching her. It seemed to be the same lion she had seen near the jeep the day before, but now, on the ground, it looked truly majestic and terrifying. Barely holding back a scream of terror, Marta dropped to her knees and tried to quietly crawl toward the nearest bushes. But the predator quickly caught up with her. The lion let out a menacing roar, and Marta felt the ground tremble from the powerful sound. She closed her eyes, expecting the worst. But instead of a fatal strike, she felt something heavy and soft touch her shoulder. When she opened her eyes, Marta saw that the lion was gently touching her with its massive paw. She remembered David's words about staying completely still when facing a predator and forced herself not to move. The lion circled around Marta, sniffing her and occasionally touching her with its paw, as if checking whether she was alive. Marta felt its hot breath on her skin and heard her own heart pounding loudly. Every second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, the roar of other lions was heard in the distance. Marta thought in horror that within minutes the entire pride would arrive and tear her apart. However, to her amazement, the leader let out a loud roar in response, as if warning the other predators to keep their distance. Several lions from the pride still came closer, watching their leader's strange prey with curiosity. But the large lion who had encountered Marta again that day did not allow them to approach. The beast took a protective position beside her, growling menacingly at any lion that tried to come near. Marta could not believe what was happening. The leader of the lions, whom she had considered her killer, had suddenly become her protector. She did not understand why the great wild beast had spared her, but she was endlessly grateful to him for this miracle. Several hours passed, which felt like an eternity to Marta. She lay motionless while the lion continued to guard her from the others. Finally, the sound of approaching jeeps was heard in the distance. The lion became alert but did not move. When the rangers drove almost right up to them, the lion let out one last loud roar and slowly disappeared into the savanna. Marta was surrounded by a group of anxious tourists and rangers. She was in shock and couldn't speak, only crying nonstop with relief and gratitude. Later, when Marta finally came to her senses, she told the locals and David about her incredible experience. No one could explain the lion's behavior, but everyone agreed that it was a true miracle. The incident had a profound impact on Marta. She realized the fragility of her own life and the greatness of nature. In the years that followed, she often thought about that extraordinary lion who had become her unexpected guardian angel in the African savanna. The encounter changed her view of life and nature, inspiring her to continue traveling and to work for the protection of wild animals.